Yo, what's up, my friends? We just got out of a 30-hour gaming session. We did our pre-questing, we did ZF spam, we tried out the new Emerald Dreams, they were amazing. But more importantly, we spent over 15 hours in Sunken Temple. It was an amazing journey. This was pre-nerf, right? This was maximum health values on every boss. Everything felt like this incredible challenge. But as we were doing the bosses, we learned a ton of different things that I wanted to share in a video with you. And there were a bunch of things I wish we had done in the prepping process as well. Things that I feel like would have really made our raiding experience even better. Today, my fellow adventurers, we are not going to die in Sunken Temple. And we're not going to get lost on the run back either. Instead, I'm going to share a bunch of secret tips that are going to make your raiding experience amazing and stress-free. So we're going to be talking about the 3 key topics to maximize your chances of success in the raid. First is the prep side of things. Everything you can do in a short amount of time that'll give you massive returns when it comes to the raid. We're talking runes, quick pre-bis gear to get, and the new Emerald Dream incursions. Then we'll be talking about the raid comp itself. We've got my 15 hours of experience blasting in the raid to tell you exactly what classes you'll want to bring. And extra tips from a juicy interview with Sarth on exactly how to maximize your success. Finally, we'll be talking about the bosses themselves. Exactly how to maximize your raid success in every encounter. So let's get to it. First, we've got to talk about prep. Your single biggest priority and the rest of your raid's priority is to get all your new runes. Things are way different in Phase 3. Some of these runes can increase your damage by even 20%. Our hunters were absolutely destroying with new runes like Raptor Fury. But it's really all the classes that get better with runes. Some of these runes feel so insanely strong on hard fights like Aranicus. Just look at how perfectly this Void Zone's dealing with all the ads. The real Phase 3 secret is that Blizzard wants you to go out and get all your runes and then do massively higher damage. Follow their playbook and you'll be well on your way to success. Speaking of runes though, we've really got to prioritize our Emerald Warden rep early on. First off, it guarantees you a rune in 2 or 3 hours of farming. Second, you'll be getting free gold from all the quests, which really helps us to get expensive gear and supplies we'll be needing for the raid. But also, if you cap this rep, there are some insane rewards like the Roar of the Dream. That ring would feel at home as a BIS TBC ring. Your second biggest priority should be getting all the easy and overpowered new gear. The first place to check for that new gear is at the Warsong and Arathi vendors. You can grab new 48 upgrades instantly. Before the raid, I grabbed a new belt with critical strike as well as a new ring. Keep in mind that you can get 1,000 Warsong rep for free from the event quest every day. You really should get exalted as quickly as you can. I mean, those bracers are going to be insane all the way to level 60. Meanwhile, Blood Moon offers new rings that'll nearly double my stats for my priest. And there are new relics and trinkets for other classes as well. There are also new and very overpowered weapons for classes like Hunters. Look at the Bloodthirst crossbow, which is immediately an upgrade over your Nomergon blaster. The catch here, though, is that these items are very expensive. My new ring would cost 15 of the new silver coins, while the overpowered bow would cost 25. I highly recommend hitting STV every 3 hours for these upgrades, even with the increased cost. On top of PvP, you'll also want to be blasting out the newly unlocked dungeons for upgraded gear. Particularly ZF, Maradon, and BRD all have newly upgraded pieces of gear you'll want to grab. The new Jumanza grips from Zul'Farrak, my priest, were an instant pre-bis upgrade. Meanwhile, the Enthralled Spear is a huge pre-bis upgrade for most casters. And just look at this newly buffed Blade of Eternal Darkness from Maradon. Wow. The bigger reason to go back to these dungeons, though, is not for the gear. It's for the new rune quest from the Shadowtooth Emissary. TLDR is that you can use a quest item at the end of ZF and Maradon. This reveals mobs that drop a new currency called Wild Offerings. These Wild Offerings can be turned in for crazy near-bis items like the Band of the Wilds. I mean, just look at this Breath of the Beast trinket, it's insane. More importantly though, this is a reliable source of Darkmoon cards for the new decks. These decks, like the new Overgrowth deck for my priest, are so broken they look like TBC trinkets. Definitely prioritize finishing your deck for the raid fast if you've got the money. Also, if you've got the money, enchants are an even easier way to instantly spike up your power level. New Timbermaw hold enchants like the 15 agility to weapon are just insanely strong. Or maybe you want the new 8 agility head enchant from a Libram or Veracity. Just keep in mind that some of these enchants are extremely rare and obscure, so it may be hard to find a seller. Okay, so we've talked prep to max out your character. We've also got to talk about how to make sure you succeed in the raid itself too. The first thing you've got to do is to join a guild. This raid is very intentionally designed to be done progressively with a guild each week. Several of the fights are really nightmarish for pugs and they'll have you pulling your hair out. The second thing you've got to do is to plan out your raid comp. We talked extensively in the last minute prep video about tips for the ultimate raid comp, so check that video out. But having now done the raid for nearly 15 hours, I can tell you a few things I've learned. First, this is a raid that really tries to push you to bring a mix of melee and ranged. try to really bring a somewhat balanced comp. If you watched any of the World First races, the groups of 10 mages were really not finding any success. Also, many of the lessons we've learned from Classic definitely apply to Sunken Temple. Lessons like bringing 5 shamans always makes the raid easier for Horde, and that stacking max damage classes is great, but utility and CC are always going to be crucial for successful raids. Talking specific classes though, in my 15 hours of raiding, we were really happy with 2 specific classes, other than the extremely overpowered shamans that only the Horde get. These classes were the Hunters and the Shadow Priests. Hunters were able to blast nearly top damage the entire raid with their new runes, and they'll only get better as they scale. Sarth specifically mentioned how key Hunters would be before the phase came out. Meanwhile, Shadow Priests felt god tier in Sunken Temple. They brought so much damage and off-healing to offset the raid damage and even the tank damage. And sure, they're gonna scale a lot worse than physical damage dealers. But right now, when the raid is really hard, bringing 3 Shadow Priests felt like a cheat code, and I wish we had even more. Now let's talk boss tips and strategies. So the raid's really challenging right now. It's going to be getting a few rounds of nerfs. In fact, there's already been a big health nerf across the board. I think the best approach here will be to give you my number 1 tip for each boss. The first boss is Italo Ryan, so everybody's spreading out and making sure to stand between the pillars and the boss. The reason why being that the knockbacks destroy the pillars, which mean you take less damage. Everybody really should be running at least 2,000 health to not get one shot. Then there's Festering Rot Slime. The big tip is as you're kiting the boss down the hallway to stack up on a specific side. Then you can switch whenever the poison lands and take way less damage. And since you're dispelling instantly as a healer, mana's really a nightmare. For this fight and really all the fights, I definitely recommend pre-farming demonic runes. The next fight up is the Atali Defenders. Having several priests in this fight felt amazing since we could chain each boss. Alternatively, freezing traps work really well if you have a hunter stack. Then there's Dream Scythe and Weaver. I tried to position myself past both dragons and a little bit in the middle. Having a third tank to swap in was really crucial, otherwise our tank would get clapped. The next bosses are Ogam and Jamalin. We rolled Shadow Protection Potions, which feels like a really big exploit. That's because there isn't really any shadow damage until Phase 2. The other big thing was that I assigned a healer to each specific group. That way they could always keep that group topped up, so Penance never killed anybody. The next bosses are Morphaz and Hazaz. There is an ability called Lucid Dream that you'll want a line of sight at the end of it. This allowed us to completely skip the DPS check, and it may be patched at some point. And next we had Shade of Aranicus. We had our ranged outside in a stack, baiting the dream clouds. Then we barely had to move to get into the dream and avoid the wipe mechanic. Also, we had Warlocks picking up ads in Phase 2 so the healers didn't get clapped. Speaking of healers, Resto Shamans felt like god healers in this fight, and having a shaman in each group negates much of the healing of the poison mechanic. Finally, there's Avatar of Hakar. This is primarily a heal check, so I'd recommend at least 5 healers, if not 6. And having a Boomkin with Wild Growth would be a huge asset as well. Alright guys, so at this point you should be in a much better position to succeed in the new raid. I've got to ask you guys, have you gone into Sunken Temple yet? What do you think of the raid? Are you enjoying it? Is it too hard? Personally, I've really enjoyed the raid. We were going for that world first clear. Didn't happen, but we're still going for top 5 tonight, hopefully. Just a really fun raid. It is challenging, but rewarding. Alright guys, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And check out the Ultimate Consumes Guide for Phase 3. It's really going to help your clears, I promise you.